Going on, Pastor?
Nothing much. Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, doing well. I'm excited to be here with you, having another conversation. Before we got on the camera, we've been talking about because we haven't had really a name for this yet, and
Right.
so we're talking about the name of this being Incur Edge, right?
Yeah.
And the purpose for these conversations is just simply to provide some information to those who are out there trying to follow their purpose, just to give them some information to encourage them to dive fully into their purpose or to continue within their purpose as they may be experiencing challenges and things like that. Without all the drama and the hot takes and the woo's and ahs and stuff like that, just straight information for the purpose of encouraging you in your purpose. And so that's what we look forward to having today. And with that being said, you posted a question online to see what people were interested in, what concerns did they have in their walk of faith with them by themselves or with others, with their family members and stuff like that. And so we got a lot of questions that came in, and so we thank you for that.
Yeah.
And now it's just trying to synthesize that information so that we can give you the good information concisely so that you can act upon it. And so we got a couple questions here. I'm just going to probably go through two or three today.
Okay.
And the first question that that I see on this list right here is, what practical steps can people take to maintain their mental and emotional well-being during challenging life circumstances?
Okay. So let's just say all of life is challenging, but particularly when things come up in terms of challenges, and they're usually tied to transitions.
Right.
One of the keys to making smooth transitions is updating your files.
Okay.
That's one of the most important things. So to maintain that connection with yourself so that you don't get lost, it's important you check in with yourself.
Okay.
So I like to say the most important point on any map is the "you are here" point.
Right. Got to start there.
Got to start there. So in all of it, I have to periodically check in with myself to see where I'm at.
Okay.
And otherwise, I get caught in the circumstances.
Right.
So my approach is always to seek clarity to build conviction.
Okay.
So
Expand
whatever's
that a
going
little bit.
on, my goal is to seek clarity. And my belief is when I gain enough clarity, I'll develop conviction. And that conviction will be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. This one. Now, the clarity is not about what's happening, because what's happening is usually a story rooted in elements of mythology.
Okay. I get that.
What I'm really looking at is the clarity that I'm looking for is how clear am I that this fits who I am.
Okay. As far as the direction or
As far as whatever I'm going to do needs to express who I am.
okay, got it.
So my choices come from clarity about myself, and ultimately the hardcore stuff comes from conviction about myself.
Okay.
Like, what is in me that's me?
Yeah.
That's like, oh no, that ain't, So if somebody were to say, oh, I saw Donald doing something, but you'd be able to know from my conviction.
Character,
Yeah.
You know
You didn't see him doing it.
Right. Might have done something, but he didn't do that.
Yeah, well, other stuff is on the table.
Right, but not
that ain't
that.
on the table.
Got it.
So as I go through the challenges of life, the goal is not to meet the challenge. The goal is to clarify who I am.
Okay.
We often will respond. Well, I'll put it this way. We often will react to the circumstances instead of responding out of who I am.
Yeah. That's good.
So, and I did this extensive search on the concept of respond versus react. React means to mirror back. It's so react.
Yeah,
you
act.
acted, I reacted.
Okay.
Respond means really more a reflective thing. So I'm responding to him. I want to be in a state where I'm responding.
Yeah.
And so what I'm really doing is responding to the situation out of who I am, so that a lot of my counseling is tied not to trauma that people went through, but the loss of themselves while they were going through. And that's what hurts, especially when they come out of relationships. Man, I just let myself go. What was I thinking? This ain't even who I am. Well, part of that is because at any given point in a relationship, you're not updating files.
All right.
So I start off, I have an interest in you. I want to be with you. We doing this. And so my drive is to react to we doing this.
All right.
And so every time you do something, well, we doing this, so I'm trying to make this happen. I'm trying to make this work. As opposed to, does this now work for me?
Yeah, is this consistent with who I am? Yeah.
Have we moved to a place where I stop being me?
Okay.
So one of the key elements of that is I got to check in and I got to be aware of my you are here point. So frequently updating the files. So I'll talk to people who are in relationships and things have gone haywire, and I'm not talking married folk, but like dating. And they'll be like, oh, how do we get it back on track? And one of the questions I ask, do you want to get it on track?
Yeah.
You know, well, where's that come? Oh yeah, we want it to work. What about it do you want to work? What about it working fits you?
Yeah.
You know, so that part of
More
it
clarity.
is, yeah, so, yeah, we were together, we were doing this, and now I see this is really not
Who I am.
who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I dated a girl once, super attractive, not gonna lie. And not that the other ones weren't, and not that my wife isn't now currently the most beautiful of them all. But I'm just put that in there. But, you know, she was fine on all 7 continents,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. And I was chasing the fine,
Yeah.
but she was damaged at a whole nother level. The moment I stopped pursuing fine, I realized I can't do ministry and date you.
So I had me way out of my.
Yeah, because I don't have that dual energy. Like, I don't have the bandwidth for what you need. Whoever gets with you is going to be playing Ice Cube in the background, bow down.
Right.
Because she was just that emotionally needy. But I was still in fine mode. So as long as I'm in fine, I'm chasing fine. So I'm reacting to all of this jealousy and all this other kind of stuff and neediness and need to go here, need to be seen, need to be, well, we're connecting over here and and everything was about the show and the shine and all that stuff.
Right.
None of that's me.
Yeah. Had to update those files.
So at a point, a friend of mine was like, dude, this, when you gonna be done with this?
Yeah.
And here's the key. I had to sit and I had to think about it, and I realized I ain't done with the fine part yet. So whatever else is happening, dude, that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never forget the conversation I had with my boy. We were talking and something had come up, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. He was like, well, welcome back.
Right.
You know, welcome
Cost
back.
got too high for me.
But the reason why it didn't feel damaging was because at a point, my friend challenged me to count the cost.
Yeah.
Okay, you ain't a victim.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was rolling. Like, man, if this girl would just stop, if this girl would just act right, if you know,
All good.
it'd be all good if she wasn't so jealous. It'd be all good if we could just, man, we could really build something.
No count. This will come with it.
we can't build anything because she ain't never given you a building permit.
Right. That's good.
But I'm trying to like
Make it happen.
make it happen in the backyard. I'm popping up,
Right.
I'm doing pop-up, you know. So one of the big issues about getting through life and meeting those challenges is having that you are here point that's stable and being able to check in with that. See where I've come from, to see where I'm at, to see where I'm going. The you are here point becomes essential.
Yeah.
So that's the first kind of practical, tangible, and we can dive into some other things if you got questions about that. But really, it's going to be that orientation. Where are you orienting from?
Yeah.
Your you are here point. What's your you are here point? So we started with fine. I found out fine does not exclude, I'll just say it, crazy. So crazy and fine can go together.
Against common belief.
Against common belief. You know, and it's kind of like that song "Addicted to Love." I think it was the second one. You're so fine, there's no telling where the money went. You know,
No,
it was that kind of.
You're thinking, yeah.
And what he's basically saying is, you were so fine, I was blinded by the fine.
Yeah.
I wasn't even counting how much money I was spending.
Yeah, we just don't.
I'm just about this fine. And, you know, it could be fine, it could be strong, secure, great family,
anything.
smart, anything. It doesn't just have to be fine. Fine just was what it was for this situation. But really, it's about not what do I want, it's who do I want to be.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
is this an expression of who I am? And so the people get lost because they're so committed to what they want that they let the pursuit blind them, and they get what's called mission blindness, where I'm so focused on the target
I lose context
that I
of
lose
everything
context that there are elements of going after this target that need to be updated.
Yeah.
And so I'm locked in, and I don't see my surroundings, so I wind up hitting a tree,
Yeah.
headed towards my target because I'm so fixated on the target, I don't see the tree.
Yeah.
It becomes important, like I said, to periodically check in with yourself and update your files. So that would be one of the most pertinent things that I see, is that people just don't update their files.
Yeah, that reminds me. I can't think of like the exact, but there's been many movies, particularly around. I think about law enforcement or military men, where it's like you find yourself starting off with this goal of I'm here to protect and serve, and then you find yourself going after these missions, and you're going after these missions, and next thing you know, you don't realize like you're becoming the villain that you thought you was protecting
Right.
people from, and it's because you just was so locked in on that mission. One question that kind of came up to my mind, it's kind of just like a yes or no, but early when you was answering this question, it made me think, like, do you think these problems, or God will allow us to face some of these problems for that very reason of like, so that we may sit and think and try to, see who we are, or are we matching ourselves with what God has called us in? Are we walking in an image that looks like we're mirroring Christ?
Well, again, that goes back to what's your target. Okay. If you're fine enough, I may forget that I'm supposed to look like God.
Yeah, or rich, rich enough, or whatever.
Right, or rich enough, or whatever. Or even some of the good things, like, oh, I want my kids to be so educated that I got them in all these activities, but we never make it to church.
Yeah,
We're not pouring into them spiritually.
Yeah, that's good.
And again, coming to church ain't the end all be all, but he did say not to forsake yourselves.
Yeah.
So there's a dynamic to that. One of the key things is, and this I'll add to it, in terms of clarity and conviction lands on what I call, I borrowed it from Paul Tillich, Christian philosopher. And he said your faith is literally whatever your ultimate concern is. So he defined faith as an ultimate concern. In this era where we multitask, we have 5 or 6 ultimate concerns. Like people will say, oh,
these
I've got a
priorities.
list of goals. Well, what's your top 5? There is no top 5.
Right,
There's a
one.
top 1 that determines the rest of them.
Yeah.
And so part of that is having and checking in and having a specific goal around what's my convictions about myself specifically. What am I? What am I not? And then a lot of times, if you check in with that and you don't lose that and you keep, looking for the line in the middle of the road, like I drifted, but here's the
Right
line in
back.
the middle of the road, and I align myself to that, that will dictate a lot of the stuff we worry about.
Okay.
So part of what, in answering your question, God letting us go through stuff, there's the extent in my mind to which God lets us go through stuff, not as like a directive, but as I often drift when I drive type situation where, ooh, wow, you done swerved.
Right, yeah, that's on you.
In fact, Paul talks about swerving from the faith.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, how do you handle your swerving? Do you reorient and that drift? So a lot of the stuff in my mind that we go through is tied really to our own sort of, ooh, shiny object.
Yeah.
And I'm over here, and we stop counting the cost. Scripture talks about count the cost.
Yeah.
You're going to go to war.
Yeah, count the cost before you
Be
go.
prepared for those losses. You're going to build this. Be prepared for the unforeseen. And so it becomes important in terms as I'm navigating through life that I count the costs. And in counting the costs, part of that is accepting the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when people start ventures out, it's like, the average person makes this much money, and and they make this, and if you do this, you can get all these rewards. So we look at the rewards and we don't look at the cost of doing business.
Yeah. The hours put in, the
The
skills
hours
you
put
need to
in.
obtain. the what-
So the show, The Deadliest Catch.
part of it.
Yeah, it's a show about fishing for crab in the worst waters on the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason why it's called The Deadliest Catch is because the catch has a high reward to it, but the environment that they exist in is deadly.
Right.
So it's called The Deadliest Catch for a reason.
Right.
Well, if I'm fishing for the deadliest catch, deadly seas should not be something I don't expect.
Yeah.
So storms come with that,
Right.
doing that.
Can't be surprised.
Can't be
Shouldn't.
surprised. If I'm in law enforcement, putting my life on the line. If I'm in the military, putting my life on the line. If I'm a teacher, parents,
Right. And kids.
and administration and kids.
Right. The whole-
Sometimes the parents are worse than the kids. So a lot of times, though, we'll incur all that, and then we won't accept, or we haven't reconciled. Oh, so I will be dealing
This
with
is part of it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Ministry. You're going to get ghosted. People are going to be close to you, and someday they'll come to you and be like, "Oh, the Lord's leading me somewhere else." There's and you're going to get judged by how how people perceive you're treating them, and every sermon you give. Ooh, that was a good one. Ooh, that wasn't a bad. It's like thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm not preaching my word.
Right. I'm
The
word. Right.
I'm preaching His word as best I can. But that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You're going to be talked about. You're going to have people question you. That's the cost of leadership. So part of navigating that is accepting the cost. But you're not going to accept the cost if you don't count the cost. So you have to count the cost, and then sometimes you have to recount the cost and say, okay, here we are. Is this still worth it?
Yeah.
And you have to check in, and you have to recommit, so.
That's really good. I think we have one more question. I think builds on this. Okay, so yes, it says, how do you address the fear of losing oneself in the midst of life's challenges? Like how can individuals maintain the sense? So we kind of talked about having your midway point, right? So that's one way we can do it. But I would say, first of all, when it comes to, okay, if you're trying to find out who you are and you're asking yourself these questions, do you believe this is something that you just sit and meditate on? Is this something that you do in combination with prayer, supplication, or reading of the word? Or
It's going to be a combination of a lot of things, but one of the things, I'll flip the question. It's been my observation that the losing yourself isn't the problem.
What do you think?
It's the you never knew yourself. In order to lose myself, I must first have known myself.
Yeah.
And what I find is that people don't know themselves. And this is the reason why. That fear inhibits exploration. Because to know yourself, you're going to have to explore.
Yeah.
You're going to have to try some stuff. You're going to have to see some stuff. You're going to have to experience some stuff. So part of the challenge is putting myself out there to find out about myself.
Right. What are the boundaries?
What are the boundaries? So I'll give you an example for myself. At one point, I was over one of the largest single ministries probably in the country. And at a point, I wound up being able to get singles to volunteer to do things in ministry, and I was put over a ministry called Courtesy from Parking the Pew, and that ministry was in charge of all of the volunteers on a Sunday. Greeters, ushers, parking, transportation, kind of the public thing, getting cars towed because they parked in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Massive campus, as you might imagine. 3 services,
Oh, yeah. I was working.
3,500 in, 3,500 out, 3,500 in
Yeah.
like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
At one point, we were in multiple locations, so it's now transporting ministerial staff, and so just, it was real.
Right.
So
Disneyland.
now, the teaching and being the singles pastor wasn't a problem. I kind of natural skill set. Yeah, I'm not really a people person. Not like social, like I'm out there. I'm more introverted.
Yeah.
But if you're really walking with 500 volunteers, you have to now engage.
Yeah.
Here's what I found out. I found out in doing that what I would have never just known.
Yeah.
That people need to be walked with. They need to be engaged one-on-one. And so what I found out was I couldn't do that job like, do it. I'm being here for service.
Yeah.
That job required that I be
In their lives,
mobile in their lives, walking around, checking in, seeing how things are doing. But I never saw myself as that person. But it pulls it out of you. So I wound up realizing, because I would have told people prior to that, I am a teacher, not a pastor. I'll teach
Give
it.
you the word.
I'll give you the word. Do what you're going to do with it. Because that was the nature of my personality, and that's how I saw myself. But handling that ministry, walking with people through their life changes while they're doing that. Hey, Pastor, can I talk to you for a minute? So we're walking the parking lot. So I'm seeing ministry from a different, there's in the church, there's that. But I'm now seeing it like, hey, me and my girl just got into it, or whatever. Oh, I'm thinking about all of those dynamics were really what prepared me for pastoring.
Okay.
That's what, it wasn't the teaching, it wasn't the being, oh, I'm the singles pastor, let me teach you. The teaching prepared them, but what prepared me was doing the volunteer and having that. But I would have never tried that. Somebody suggested I do it. Because they saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And so it isn't just simply losing yourself. My fear is not that you lose yourself. My fear is you never find yourself.
Found it, yeah.
And that you live this life safe and exploring. So without exploration, the life unexplored is worse than the life lost. Because one life was never lived.
That's good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a bar.
So to me, I'd rather you mess up. I'd rather you drift. I'd rather you be like, man, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
I'd rather you have that conversation with yourself, because what was I thinking means I'm now getting clarity,
Wow.
which is leading to conviction. I know one thing, I ain't built for that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
I know one thing, I'm not built for that kind of job. That experience helped me define what kind of pastor I am and what kind of pastor I'm not.
That's good.
And then I just got comfortable. I've had friends tell me in ministry who were like, man, I don't know, your flow, you too close to the people. They get to judge you. I can't have them up on me like that. These are real conversations.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not judging their way or my way. I'm just saying, choose your way
Right.
and what works for you.
Right.
So I'm not going to be it's got to look a certain way, you know. I grew up in there where the suits and the, downtown LA, and you got to get, and your gaiters, and I grew up in that era where it was a fashion show, and it was part of like your credibility. So I'm not knocking it, but it is not, I can't put that work in.
Yeah.
I don't have it in me to put that work in. So I couldn't have a congregation that required me to be
like that,
the alpha male dressed, presented image and stuff. I'm too flawed, and I'm too willing to let you see it, because I ain't got the time or the energy or the effort to be hiding it.
That's good.
So to me, it's more discovery. Now, here's what I will say in that. What you want is a community that allows you to explore, but presents you buffers and boundaries.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what you want. You want a community that's like, hey, let me
Just checking in.
Dude,
Right.
what's up? I'm seeing you like, that's kind of out there. You want to be able to be reeled in.
That's so good.
So it's building a community, family, friends that can reel you in. What you don't want is somebody screaming, run the yellow light. You don't want that. Punch it. Yeah, you want somebody like, dude, the light just turned yellow. It's gonna turn red. And so to me, it's exploration plus boundaries. And so you just put the boundaries in. We got the stripe down the middle of the road. Drive. That's how we get from place to place. We get from place to place. I don't know if you remember Disneyland, and I don't even know if they have it, but they had this spot called Autotopia, and they had these cars. And they had this little track, almost like gigantic slot cars. And you drove these cars through this little ride. Cars didn't drive fast.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
But you're steering, but you can only steer.
It's not
They're on
free.
this thing.
Yeah.
You're not free.
It's not a go-kart.
It's not a go-kart. And so a lot of times we're looking for the Autotopia ride. When we should be aware, this is more like bumper cars.
Yeah, that's good.
It's more like bumper cars. You're gonna run into stuff, but the speed is safe. You got the safety equipment, but you're gonna hit some stuff. And you're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
That to me is more what you look for. The exploration and the ability to explore, recognizing there's a cost and an impact, but not so much in a way where you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Or severely damaged, I'll say. So to me, it's where's your bumper car environment?
Yeah.
Where you're free, but you're free within the context of a boundary and support, and where it's more, we're having fun than damaging each other.
Yeah.
You know, now, there is some impact. To me, that's more, I'm looking for more the bumper car situation where we're having fun and we're exploring and we're taking hits versus the go-kart where it's just solely competitive and we're racing against each other, or the Autotopia where,
We ain't even really doing nothing.
you ain't doing that. You just in there turning that wheel. And I think you got 2-3 inches
Right.
giveaway,
Yeah.
you know. So for me, I don't know if that answers the question, but for me, that would be more what I would be looking at.
No, that was very beneficial. And actually, if we have time, I just want to ask one more question because that kind of, in your answer, the last one I thought about. So if somebody is in their sense of exploration and trying to figure out who they are, how do they simultaneously know, I'll preface this with, I think we talked about it, or I heard it somewhere, just talking about how families can be traumatizing places sometimes because they try to get you to fit into a mode.
It's the most traumatizing environment on the planet.
Right. They try to fit you into a mode that may not necessarily be yourself. So if you're trying to find out who you are, you're exploring, but you also want to have people that can reel you in, how do you know if people are reeling you into the right places while you're still trying to, if that kind of makes sense, making sure that.
I would look at the shame content.
Okay, the shame content. I like that. So how much of it?
So, if you don't mind me sharing, you had a season of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I was determined not to do. Shame
Me for it, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I put in boundaries.
Yeah.
You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Within this
As long as
context.
you stay right.
Within this, you ain't going to be all right out here. and I do not believe you will be out here long.
Right.
But what I'm not going to do is shame you for it.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the people in your life are shaming, you will not explore. Not only will you not explore, shame drives behavior underground.
Yeah.
So
you're hiding.
you're going to be
sneaking,
hiding.
annoying, yeah.
Adam and Eve was the first thing it did.
Run
The
and
shame
hide,
kicked
yeah.
in. I was naked and ashamed.
And I
I took my behavior underground.
Yeah.
And I escalated my hiding. I went from leaves to trees.
Yeah.
And that becomes the dynamic. So for me, and especially for those committed to their faith, the greatest danger to people's faith from my vantage point in terms of church harm is shame. And how much shame are we putting on people? Because shame isn't change.
Yeah.
Shame isn't transformation. Shame isn't even conviction.
Yeah.
Shame is not support. Shame is the most painful, crippling thing that can happen to you. Why? Because shame is death while you're still living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what shame is.
Mm-hmm.
The death of yourself, and yet you keep living.
Yeah.
And so you're experiencing the death of yourself. Why? Because shame makes you forfeit your authenticity,
Yeah.
makes you forfeit your identity, makes you forfeit the convictions that you have because I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
This, I'm not this, or I'm not that, or I don't measure up to this. Shame always has a yardstick and it's always chasing you.
Yeah.
The most important point on the map is you are here. The most devastating point is you're not here.
Yeah.
And that's what shame says.
Yeah.
But you're not here.
Yeah. Might have got close. Yep. But
Well, and even more shaming because you got close and you didn't get it.
I couldn't finish the job.
You couldn't finish, which says something about you
Yeah.
that's permanent, that you can't change.
That's
And
so
so for me, that's why exploration is so important. Exploration is important because explorers don't live in shame because they keep it moving.
Yeah. Updating
And so
those
it's like
files.
updating those files. So it's like, oh, wow, okay, so that didn't work. So what are we gonna do now?
Try that. Right. Let's pick
Right.
it.
When you look at the story of the prodigal son, when did his life change? His life changed and he was able to recover himself, scripture says, and he recovered himself. But what was the key to that? The key to that was him updating his files.
Reflecting.
He's sitting there reacting to his circumstance, and then he reflects and
father's
says,
house.
my father's house.
Servants get treated better than.
He had stopped updating his files. He had stopped checking in. So his reasoning being, originally, I'd rather go be a servant in his house because they get treated better than this
Right.
than
Be out here.
be out here trying to make it happen. That's that mission-minded blindness, like I'm making it work, I can't go back, all these types of things. That's the storying and the mythology around it. And here becomes kind of the synthesis of it all. It doesn't matter if you lose yourself, it matters that you stop choosing yourself. You got to be choosing yourself,
Yeah.
which is why you always hear me talk about ABC. Always be choosing. That's the key to keeping the story edited.
Yeah.
You're always choosing, so the story's never final. So whatever happened is never fatal
Yeah.
because I'm always choosing. So what are we gonna do now?
Yeah.
You know, and that's usually when people come to me at their worst hour. I hear their story, I affirm their story, and then I'm like, okay, so we're here now. You are here, point.
Right. What are you gonna do?
What do you want? What do you want to do from here? How do you want to, okay. Now, that's not a pursuit of perfection. That's a salvage job. Okay, so what can we
Yeah.
salvage from that?
Yeah.
Can we fix the marriage? Can we?
Yeah. It's gonna be different, man.
It's gonna be different. It ain't gonna be
Yeah.
what you both set out and when you were standing up there making all them promises.
Right.
Some promises just flat weren't kept. So,
Right.
that's on
That's
the
what
books.
it is, yeah.
That goes on your permanent record.
Right. But from this point.
From this point forward, we can salvage this. There's still value here. And
so
it's
good.
moving forward around that. And it's, to me, it's updating the files. It's the constant exploration and movement.
Yeah.
To me, my fear would be, like I said, that somebody thinks they know themselves and at 30 or 25 have locked in so much into who they are that they don't have no room to discover who they're going to become.
Yeah.
So, I don't know fully how that answers their question, but I'm not as fearful of people losing themselves as much as I'm fearful of
Never
people
finding
never finding themselves. So that fear I would put in check.
Yeah.
And I would just go for it and evaluate, And then some of it is you just got to trust yourself that you ain't going to be heinous.
Right.
I mean,
There's
in
just
general,
such
I've
stuff.
lived my life, I haven't been heinous.
Right.
Probably not going to wind up heinous.
Right.
Heinous people usually are heinous early.
Yeah.
You
see the signs.
it's like, yeah.
You can
Yeah,
make.
I said, uh-huh. No one's like surprised. It's
Right.
like, oh yeah, they came out as heinous. Yeah, okay. They were always kind of heinous.
Yeah, I've seen it early, yeah.
You saw the cruelty.
Right.
You saw what they laughed at.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of it is just trusting yourself. You ain't gonna be heinous.
Hey, man. Well, I want to thank you today, Pastor, for this conversation. As we said, we started off saying that this whole conversation is for the purpose of informing you so that you be encouraged in your walk, in your purpose in life. And I don't know about you, but I can definitely say for me, I received a lot of great information today, and I definitely feel encouraged from the things that were talked about. Namely, being that point of, it is better. It's better losing yourself than never knowing who you are, and encouraging you to explore. In a day and age where there is so much stuff out there that shames you early, tries to tell you stay in your little box, you're not meant to do this. Try anyway. Try and explore. Find some people that that allow you to do that and help and reel you in, and enjoy it. Enjoy the process of it all. So I want to just thank you again, Pastor Bell, for your time, for your wisdom, and just for your obedience.
Appreciate it, man.
Indeed.
Have a good one.
Y'all be blessed.